What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I take a shower and hit the rack.
Take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Paro.
No way, gotta run, feet, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode. There are so many veterans with the core strengths to become successful entrepreneurs and can continue to make a huge positive impact on our country. Here we highlight the amazing successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Combat veterans for the purpose of this show are soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who have served the United States in wars, campaigns, and in theater on foreign soil or hostile waters. Our guest today is Troy McCann. Troy attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, where he graduated in May of 1990 with a degree in computer science. He was commissioned a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army as an armor, tank, and cavalry officer. McCann was stationed in Germany, assigned to the 8th Infantry Division, took part in Desert Storm, and was later assigned to the Division Cavalry for the 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii. He attended a number of schools at Fort Knox, Kentucky, including Armor Officer Basic Course, Armor Officer Advanced Course, and the Cavalry Leaders Course, as well as Airborne School in Fort Benning, Georgia, and the Combined Arms Firepower Course in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. In June 1997, McCann resigned his commission at the rank of captain to go to work for IBM. After 11 years in the information technology field, he went to work for the family business in the fire safety industry. Since overseeing the purchase of bare metal standard in 2014, fire prevention and kitchen exhaust cleaning have become McCann's passions. Servicing restaurants such as, but not limited to, Chick-Fil-A, Hardee's, Splash Seafood Bar and Grill, and Jethro's Barbecue. Bare Metal Standard of Des Moines has completed over 200 jobs in 2017 alone. All right, Troy, well, welcome to the show, and thank you for being a guest.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you tell our loyal listeners all about your journey from a veteran to a successful entrepreneur. Before we get into your entrepreneurial experience, can you give us an overview of your military experience?
Sure. And you mentioned that I was a West Point graduate in class of 1990, and from there was commissioned, went through officer basic course, and went over to Germany for about 39 months or so, 19 of which I want to say were out in the field, and just a short period of time over in the Gulf during Desert Shield Desert Storm, actually on the Desert Storm end of it, and then back to Germany and back to Fort Knox, the home of armor, and went to the advanced course and off to Hawaii, which was interesting and a little bit different. I went from being on heavy M1A1 tanks to riding around in Humvees and having helicopters flying above me, so very light armor or light cav foot dismount kind of situation, as opposed to the mechanized cavalry. And had an opportunity after my first son was born to go back to the mainland from Hawaii, and was visiting with my neighbor's brother and my brother's neighbor rather, and and he was asking me all sorts of questions about West Point, which is not uncommon, but then also about my degree in computer science, which was uncommon. And finally he says, well, I run my own business. And I was like, well, that's great, but I'm an officer in the United States Army and not really interested in that. Well, then when I later found out that the business that he ran was bought by IBM and was incorporated into IBM's Global Services Division, and he wanted me to come work for him. And that kind of got my attention because I didn't want to just leave the Army to go work for some guy who had some business, but going to work for IBM, my mindset at the time was, that's big leagues. That means something. And I never, connected the dots there that this guy that had gone out and built his own business got that business bought by IBM. I kind of skipped over that part, but kind of had that employee mentality perspective. But wound up interviewing with IBM and being hired, being offered a job, and that was something that my wife and I had to really consider and see if that was right for us, because I had always thought that I would put 20 or 30 years into the military. And when we got to talking about it and thinking about it, I said, well, at some point I'm going to have to get out of the military. And this opportunity is here now, so why not pursue it? And we did. And working for IBM as a consultant in their Global Services Division, I got the opportunity to do a lot of interaction with customers and finding out what their needs were and how we could address those needs. So it really, I think, took that entrepreneur business ownership aspect of being an employee to, being someone who is a problem solver. And that's what I was doing in IT throughout my career there. And my family has had a business since 1986 in the fire safety industry, and I had just never really considered that as an option. But go ahead.
I was going to say, so that's a great segue into the transition, because a lot of individuals, as they are considering getting out of the military, because I think like you said, sometimes you figure I'm probably going to be here 20 years, because a lot of individuals that go in the military have that long-term mindset, something they've always wanted to do, and so they really haven't thought about, well, if I only stay 5 years, I only stay 10 years, what's next? And so when an opportunity like that pops up, and like you said, having had exposure to a family of entrepreneurs with the family business, it really makes you stop and think, okay, what is my path? And, I need to make the best of opportunities as they come, given that they don't always, those types of things don't always, just present themselves. And that's what makes it hard for people to transition out, is because not everybody gets those opportunities popping up in front of them. And so they're like, okay, I didn't think about what I was going to do next, and nothing's popping up. And so now I really don't know what I'm going to do next. And so that's a great example of, being open to opportunities as they come, right? You can even if you thought you had a plan to 20, it really stops you in your tracks and makes you think, okay, maybe I really should consider this.
Exactly. And that's what it was for me. In fact, I was on a successful path and had been offered a company command equivalent, which as an officer, that's kind of, check that block as you continue to progress. And I had that sitting in front of me at the same time that I had the opportunity to go to work for IBM. And kind of said, well, I'm kind of at a fork here, and if I tell IBM no, that opportunity may not come again, and if I tell the Army no, then I am kind of closing the door on that active duty path. The opportunity to stay in the Guard or Reserves was, of course, there, but at least as an active duty career path, that was kind of closing the door on that and saying, yeah, I'm going to start a new chapter in my life. And ultimately, that's what we decided to do. That was.
So as you transitioned out, did you find going into that corporate environment, what was that like for you after being in the military? Because, some people, there's like a spectrum of experiences people, tend to experience over that type of transition. They either, it was a great fit, they seem to really get the military and veteran mindset, or, man, it took some, assimilation into that culture to really help myself to be successful.
With my transition into IBM, I think that was what was best for me, was that, they have a process of doing things. They have a way of doing things. They had what they called a new consultant boot camp. Which is nothing like a military boot camp. It's upstate New York, and they feed you great food.
Maybe a little snow, but other than that.
And you get a room to yourself. So, yeah. But the process of following, it was structure. So they had a structure, and they had an approach that they wanted to follow. And that was familiar to me. Mm-hmm. So that was great. Had I been put in an environment at that time where that structure wasn't there, I don't know if I would have been as successful as I was in that transition. But that's me, mm-hmm. And everybody has to figure out what they think they need for their success. But,
so did you find some of the skills and strengths that you either built or were enhanced while you were, especially in West Point and then on active duty, that they really served you well once you got out, those particular core strengths of leadership and adaptability and handling stress? Did you really find that the Army prepared you for what was to come?
Absolutely. And one of the things that, especially as an officer, we're out there giving briefings, we're talking to people, we're talking in front of troops, we're talking to wives, often just telling people this is what's going to happen, this is what your soldier is going to be doing, or telling our soldiers this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And the audience is different and the purposes are different, but the actions are the same. Mm-hmm. You're communicating an idea and a purpose. So instead of telling your soldiers that you're deploying to this location for this purpose, you're turning around and telling a business that you're going to look at information differently so that you can perform your job or your business more effectively. But it's still that communication style of what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How is it going to get done? And why you should follow me.
Yeah, that's a great comparison, because it's important for those who are transitioning to know that there are organizations out there, one, that are veteran friendly, and two, that those skills and those core strengths that you've spent so much time developing or enhancing in the military absolutely are valuable in the corporate setting. And so one of the things that I, when I coach veterans is I really am focused on utilizing and enhancing and making sure that they are taking advantage of those core skills, because they're not common to everybody and they're not something that everybody has. And so being able to understand which ones you have, which ones are best for you to use, really enhances the ability for you to stand out as the go-to person in a lot of situations.
And that's true. And what I found from vets and other people who are good at this is they've just kind of taken it for granted that that's something they do. Well, that's not a business skill. That's not a, that's not a something that I need to highlight, because everybody can do that. And the fact is, everybody can't do that. So right. It really is.
Yeah. So, all right, listeners. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Troy about his transition from IBM into entrepreneurship and how that's gone and the lessons he's learned and what's ahead for him with that venture. So we'll be right back. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers and transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Okay, we are back with Troy McCann. He was giving us a great overview of his military experience, going through West Point and his deployments and all the core strengths that he learned while he was in the military and has been able to serve him well as he transitioned into a career at IBM. And, once he, spent some time at IBM, he then found himself at another crossroad of transition, which this time took him into an entrepreneurial endeavor from a family business perspective. And so, Troy, can you kind of walk us through that thought process as you were, you're an employee now of IBM, you've been there for many years, and here's this opportunity with the family business?
Sure. And what we wound up looking at was I had actually done some work for IBM for years and had been the classic road warrior, and decided that that wasn't for me. And it wasn't, let me rephrase that. I decided that spending time with my family was more important to me than flying all over the U.S. And being gone from my wife and kids 5 or 6 nights a week. So that really made me look at some different options, and I did work for other companies in the interim there for a few years before making the transition to the family business. And really, what got the family business entrepreneur aspect of it going for me was, one, my brother asked me for help. My folks were running the business. He was the general manager. My dad wanted to step down and step away from the business. And my brother wanted help and somebody who can trust. And that's absolutely vital, I think, especially in an entrepreneurial situation, is that the people that you partner with, the people that you're close to, you trust. Inherently, you trust. That's what my brother asked. And again, that was a conversation that my wife and I had to have, and decided that that was a transition, again, that we were willing to make. And some of that had to do with lifestyle. I had seen the lifestyle that my family had. When my parents wanted to go on vacation, they went on vacation. When my brother wanted to take time off to go see the kids play sports, he did that. And that wasn't necessarily something that I had as an employee in information technology. It was kind of tied to their schedule and their plan. And the flexibility to adjust wasn't really there. So
Yeah,
I was willing to.
Yeah, so that's a great point, because a lot of people who are thinking about entrepreneurship, that's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for that flexibility, that ability to set their own schedule to some extent, because you've always got clients and you've got to work around their requirements. But it certainly opens up many more possibilities as an owner and an entrepreneur of a business, where, like you said, when you're working for the greater company that you don't own, it's much harder to make those things the priority that they need to be from a family perspective. So that's a great point for our listeners to hear, is that is a great benefit to being an entrepreneur as you kind of pave your path for it.
Absolutely. And that's, one of the things that when we made the transition, we wanted to make sure that we were owning a business, not just a job. And if your listeners aren't familiar with the difference, if I don't do the work, it doesn't get done. That's owning a job. When you have the opportunity to have people working for you, working with you, and when you're starting out, you may not, but eventually that's the goal. At least it was for me, was that I owned a business, not a job, so I could take a week off and know that revenue is still going to be coming in. We're going to still be able to pay bills. We're not going to lose customers because nobody's around to answer the phone. Those things were important to me. And we looked at bringing in bare metal standard to our family fire and safety business. And I knew that I was going to have to start it up. And I knew that it was going to be rough going. I was going to be burning the candle at both ends while we got it going initially. But I also knew that time frame was going to be relatively short, and that there was going to be, there was light at the end of the tunnel, and that there was going to be a benefit for that. And that's why we ultimately decided to bring in and have me run the bare metal standard division of General Fire and Safety. So we've got that franchise in now that, just like in the military, when you're out on deployments and you're up 18, 20 hours a day, and you're hungry and maybe you're cold and you're tired, and that deployment may be a week, it may be a month, it may be several months, but at some point it's going to be over and you're going to get to relax and have some downtime. And that's just kind of the approach that I took. So when we started it up and I was out there with our guys for 6 months solid, and I was out in the morning doing sales. I was out in the afternoon doing sales, coming home, taking a nap, and then going out with the guys at night. One, making sure that they were doing it right, and two, making sure that I knew what was being done, and that I knew how to do the work as well. So if anybody ever called and questioned anything we ever did, I was going to be able to be the subject matter expert. I wasn't going to have to turn around and go, well, let me call my guy and ask him about it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they're everything, right? They're A to Z. And like you said, though, there's huge benefit to that, because you can answer any question, or when you aren't doing A to Z, you know why or how they should be doing it. So if there becomes an issue, you know exactly what's going on or should be going on.
Exactly. And that's the benefit now. And it took about 6 months where it was rough. It took a toll on me, even as a young man. But then things started getting better. Guys started getting better at their job. They started stepping up and doing what they needed to do. And then I was able to go out and spend even more time on the sales end and less time on the doing and overseeing end. And then the growth in the business started to occur, and word of mouth gets out there, and you start to grow even more. And all of a sudden, you're getting calls for people asking for your business, and you had never called on them before. And you say, how did you hear about us?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I've got a friend, I've got a family member, I've got an association, and they said, call you guys. So that's how things really start going and taking off. And that's now you're in business.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now you're seeing the fruits of all your labor because it's passive, right? As far as some of the marketing becomes passive, and your contacts are marketing for you versus you making every contact. Absolutely. And then it's still, relational in the aspect of you get out there and you meet people and you talk to them, and maybe they're getting work done with somebody else, and maybe they're just not doing it because they don't know they're supposed to be doing it. And you educate and you bring them up and you bring them along, and then they leave that company and they go someplace else and they call you up because they know and trust you because they've got that relationship with you. Yeah. And that's really gratifying too, to know that, hey, I'm growing my business not because I've gone out and sold my business. I'm growing my business because I built a relationship where this person trusts me because I am the subject matter expert. Right. Yep. Definitely. All right. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. As we're running out of time, I'd like to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know how they can get in contact with you or learn more about your business. Well, the easiest way is to go online to buybaremetalstandard.com and look at the franchise information there. I will let you know that Bare Metal Standard does offer a military discount on the franchise fee. So for our veterans who are considering owning a business, that's an added benefit. The value that they put on service to the country that does have a financial tag to it. So that's great. Or you can reach me at General Fire and Safety. And now that website has a little bit different ending. We're used to the .com. We have a .biz, a .biz. So General Fire and Safety .biz. Those two websites will get you in touch with me or with someone who can put you in touch with me. All right. Well, great. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and most importantly, thank you for your service to our country. Well, thank you for your support. Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Paro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!